So I asked before why we don't just snap our fingers and have all this mastery stuff happen instantly. It's for the experience you just went through, that deep realization of forgiveness. It's not like a church religious forgiveness. It's the wisdom. It's actually tapping into your own wisdom. That's it. Tapping into the I exist. That's it. I asked before, why don't we just snap our fingers and have this all happen? We can have the lights back up, please. Make this all happen. Well, I'll leave on this analogy. The caterpillar. Going through such an experience of being a caterpillar, but knowing that it's really not a caterpillar. Goes through days and weeks and months as a caterpillar, finally has something inside beyond its caterpillar mind that says, it's time, I got to get out of here. This is not me. This really is not me. Been an experience, love your other caterpillars, time to go. I'm out of here. You can try to hold me back, but I'd rather die than not achieve my greatness. And it goes through the transformation in the cocoon. And it's aware, it's aware something's changing. And there's part of it that's cursing these changes, being trapped in this cocoon, but part of it's saying, this is amazing. Wow, here I am getting rid of all these legs and all this greenness, but here I am, I'm actually aware that I'm changing. So that when I become whatever I'm going to become, I'll know exactly how I got here. A caterpillar saying to itself, yeah, it's part of me that's, oh, geez, what have I done? What have I done? I could have just been another caterpillar. Part of the caterpillar going, shit, I thought that was unsafe. This is really unsafe. Because nobody has a manual on how to do it. And I did hear somebody say there is a red caterpillar called Satan pillar that's going to get me because I've let myself, but I don't care. I don't care because I cannot stay like what I was. I know there's something more, and I haven't been able to define it. I haven't been able to articulate it, but God, you too, God, caterpillar God, you're a bunch of bullshit. There is something beyond God. And I know it, and I'm going to find it no matter what. And in this knowing this, I also know that in spite of the fact that this is an unsafe caterpillar world within my being, all is well in all of creation. Thank you, dear Shambra. Be safe. Be safe. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Josh. Welcome back, dear friends. There's a sign in the Ascended Masters Club, as a matter of fact, right when you walk in the door. And the sign says, I gave up everything and expected nothing in return except myself. Every ascended master goes through a type of spiritual puberty where they give up everything. Oh, and it's not just the money or the goods or car, your house, your job, your family. But when it really gets down to it, what you really give up is everything that you knew to be of yourself. One of the most challenging things you or any other awakening human will ever do. Certainly because there is always the desire to build on this personality, to build on yourself. You do it through things like your wardrobe, your job, your status in the community, your relationship with yourself, always trying to define yourself in an interesting and new way. But ultimately, it all comes tumbling down, or it's torn apart, or you gracefully release it, gracefully. And that's what I hope we're going to be doing in our next series, this series, which I'll share the name with you in a moment. I'll let the anticipation build a little bit. But indeed, there is that whole going beyond personality. The mind can't fathom it. It can't. The mind tries to justify it in a way by saying, okay, I'm going to be a little bit less of me. Well, you can't be one way or the other. The mind says, I'm going to get rid of my bad habits. Well, you're going to discover, and I'm on record saying this, you're going to discover that actually your bad habits have really served you quite well. It's your good habits that I worry about. Truly. Those are the habits, those are the things that you do that you're righteous about, that you defend, that you hold on to, and even when I try to take them from you, even when I try to kick them out of you, you hold on to them. Your bad habits, of course, you don't like. You try to get rid of, you try to overcome. They're your own battlefields of power within yourself. Thank you. So it's not the bad habits that I worry about. It's what you consider your good habits, the building blocks of your esteem, your personality. You're in a very funny shifting away from what you would call your personality, your identity, into something that's like a big abyss. It's not. But you have to approach it as the abyss. You have to approach it without knowing what comes next. Otherwise, your personality is going to try to grab onto it and mold it into the image that it would like to have of itself. And as you've discovered, that image that you would like to have of yourself is pretty unobtainable. But yet you keep trying to obtain it. You keep trying to go for it. I can tell you right now, and this message, obviously, for you, not for the outside world, you're not going to be able to obtain it. So stop trying. That's why I'm not a fan at all of goals and plans and programs. Those are for the mortals. And when I say mortals, I'm not talking about the physical body. I'm talking about those who hold on to an illusion, let's say a perception of what life is and where they fit into it. And really that's what so much of people's life is, trying to fit in, constantly asking that question, where do I fit in? How do I fit in? And that dreaded question of the ages, who am I? Don't ever ask that again. The minute you feel it coming up from within you, that who am I question, in whatever iteration that you put it in, whatever form you put it in, the moment that you feel that coming, take a deep breath and I am that I am. Shut up. So along the same lines of this coming to the end of spiritual puberty, there's been such an attempt to improve or develop your personality. And again, I go back to the reasons why I'm not in favor of plans and programs and goals. All is doing is intensifying or densifying your personality. And there's such a desire by humans to do that, to identify themselves as something, with something. That's why they form affinity groups. They belong to clubs and associations so they can identify. They're constantly trying to improve themselves. Well, we're going to release ourselves. And it could be scary. Well, you've had plenty of experiences with that up to now. It can be scary at times. Really releasing that thing called a personality. But the personality, the thing you identified to, connected to, validated yourself to, was no longer valid. You realize that's so often what's happening when people have to validate themselves. You know, go out there in everyday life, you're constantly invalidated by things. So you're constantly trying to validate yourself. You're trying to put the pieces in place, in the who am I pieces. You're a mother, or you're a father, you're an executive, or you're a taxi driver, you're this age or that, you're smart, you're stupid. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether invalidating yourself, there's not a big difference between saying I'm smart and I'm stupid. At least it's a validation or an identification. See, and I had a bad childhood. I had a good childhood. I'm good looking. I'm bad looking. It's all validation, even if it's negative validation. These are the hooks that you put into things to identify yourself. And the more you identify yourself, the more you associate yourself to other things, the better you feel for a while. But then it starts to wear off, and then you come up with some new plan, program, goal, or whatever. And don't get me wrong, it's wonderful to express the creative being that you are. But sometimes these plans and programs are not as ways of expressing rather than just a way of validating, or sometimes a way of distracting yourself from yourself. We're going to go into a beautiful time now of truly releasing the personality. I'm not talking about killing the personality or annihilating it, but releasing all of those connecting points, the validating points of who you are. Now, you probably noticed that lately there's occasion, perhaps a lot of occasion, with some very interesting, intense, bizarre dreams. We try to make sense of them, and they don't make any sense at all. They're not prophetic dreams. They're not about what's going to happen in the world, going to happen to you. They're literally things that are happening in your life. You, through this process of attempting to validate your identity, you've created more and more aspects, and you had a lot to begin with, but you've created even more aspects. And it's been interesting. The understanding of aspectology is very, very important, but it also gets to the point that you become a bit obsessed with it. And contrary to what Tobias originally said, you've tried to control these aspects, like they're a bunch of puppy dogs or like they're your children. Or you fear them, like they have more power than you, or they have more beingness than you, perhaps a better word. Very interesting. And particularly would be a very interesting spiritual psychology discussion of how the understanding of aspectology actually creates more aspects for a while, and actually creates I would say a fear of aspects, or the creator being, imagine this, the creator being, this would be a good sci-fi movie or book, the creator being, starting to understand the aspects it has of itself, actually gives up power or more beingness to one of the very aspects themselves, or many of the aspects. In other words, my dark aspects are more powerful, more beingful than me. And that happens. I've seen it with so many of you. I won't look any of you in the eye. I'll look in the camera. I've seen it happen out there. You give more beingness, more authority, more identity to some of these aspects, like they're smarter than you, or they're more talented than you, or gifted than you. It's an interesting phenomena, because you are the creator being of each and every one of those aspects. Maybe there is a hidden desire or a hope to have one of them better than you. A hope that, God, I hope there's something better than this. So maybe there's an aspect who's more magnificent than I, or even in a warped and twisted way, more powerful than I, so dark that it's grander than I. Some sort of twisted wish that there was something greater than yourself, because you're not happy with that self. Well, because it's a personality, it's not yours. The body, of course, is easy to understand when I say that's not yours. You say, well, hell yeah, I look like my mother. I don't want to look like my mother. I want to look like my father. So there's almost a rallying around the flagpole when we talk about releasing your ancestral biology. Well, damn, it's about time. But I say that it's about time also to recognize that that personality is not really yours. Weird. Of course, the mind jumps in and says, well, whose is it then? No one. But it's not the authentic you. It's not the real you. I've heard your questions to yourself lately, and one of the big questions that you have is, am I authentic? Am I being real? When you were younger, particularly for those of you who had a somewhat a religious background, it used to be, am I being good or bad? Or if you believed in Santa Claus, am I being good or am I bad? And then now it's been replaced by, am I being real? Am I being authentic with myself? Well, of course not. Of course not. I want you to take a look at your personality. I'm talking about the facade. I'm talking about the storefront, the window dressing. I'm not talking about the back room. We'll get to that later. But I'm talking about that facade that you put up. What's it based on? What's based on? Partly your upbringing. In other words, the environment, your parents and your siblings and your teachers, based on that. Not really yours. Your personality is based on a lot of reactions to circumstances in the past that you don't really truly perceive in their full being. We've talked about it many times. You see a sliver of what happened in the past. But you take that sliver and you put it into your personality development, you put it into yourself, and then you adapt that and you say, well, this is me. You take things that have happened to you in life and you just accept them without really understanding what happened. Or without, I should say, extracting the wisdom, stripping away fear, details, trauma, and everything else, and just extracting the wisdom. We have a lot of wisdom extracting to do here. And you take things that are flying in from the outside, news, you take it on as your own. And by the way, this whole process that you're going through, and thank you, Marty, for the cue there. He yawned. This whole process is tiring you out, and it's boring too to talk about. Wouldn't you rather sing? But it's tiring you out, and then you wonder in this whole personality development, now going downhill into personality derailment. It's like if you were in puberty. Remember when you were 13, 14, 15 years old, you couldn't get enough sleep. And you couldn't get enough food either, but you couldn't get enough sleep. Always tired, always feeling anemic, always feeling no energy, other than occasional burst of energy for sexual thoughts and experiences. But other than that, it was, I'm talking more to the boys. The boys are laughing. The men, I should say men. So right now, you're particularly tired a lot. And then what do? You say, oh, I'm just getting older. So what do you do next? This is so classic. You say, you sleep. No. You say, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? I need more exercise. Because I heard on the news or I heard some doctor say more exercise. Actually, you don't. Really. When we go into light body, you're going to find a lot of that exercising is total bullshit. It really is. Say. No, it really is, because you heard it somewhere. I've got to exercise and I have to do so many hours a week, and what a unjoy of life. So then you're like, then I have to eat different. And you see what you're doing. You're building all of these attributes, the personality building. No, you're tired because you're going through spiritual puberty. It's a very consuming process. You're getting rid of all that crap you've been dragging around for a long time that is not yours. It's not your personality. When you go home tonight or when you wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, please, because that body is not yours. And that personality, and I should be cheering now in just a moment, but it's not yours. Thank God. It's not. Now, it brings up a lot of points. So what is your personality? Well, that's why I talked about Keiko last month, the passion. And secondly, you don't need to be identifying things with things anymore. You don't have to say, I'm a 42-year-old male that's 6 feet tall and has such and such an education. Those things are not important. They're really not. They're not important in where we're going. They're fun to play with, when you realize that they're just toys. They're really fun to play with. And that's when you get into true acting. And then you slip into the act of whatever you want to be, and then you slip out of it. But right now, you don't believe you're acting. You believe this is real. You're trying to find more authenticity. Keep hearing that coming from the deeper parts of you. Am I being authentic? Am I being real? Am I being genuine? That's coming up over and over and over again. You're not. You're not at all. And that's the good news. So that leaves a big empty space, like, wow, what am I going to do? What am I going to fill that with? How am I going to be me? Isn't it interesting, in the whole quest to be you, we're going to take you away from you, so you can really understand who you are. So much of this, just a facade. Oh, the wonderful things about it, don't get me wrong. Wonderful things, but you got to realize it's a game. It's creativity at work. Got to get beyond just trying to refine that self, that body, or that personality, or that mind.